What is up? What is up, everybody? Monday, having some fun. Last couple episodes got a lot of great messages, a lot of great conversations about the national and whether or not people are going to go to it, whether or not people are, you know, going to maybe go to Fanatics Fan Fest instead. Got a lot of great, conversation with people about the Fan Fest and making sure they know that's not a card show. I mean, I don't know exactly what it will be, and I'm sure it will evolve over time, but yeah, I guess it's not going to be a card show. It's an event, got people there, you name it, the whole deal. I guess we'll see what it is, but the fact that it's right in my backyard, it makes it an easier lift than running to Cleveland and renting a car and doing all that other fun stuff. So yeah, it's interesting. Some of the conversations I had with some folks who have been with me now for, I mean, 1,200 episodes or whatever it is combined between Lucas, Tigers, and Bronze, and 141 episodes of this fun stuff is people want to have a deeper conversation about what it means, and I think we could take that conversation right here into an episode. I asked one thing from you guys, and it's just be honest, right? Be honest and have an open mind, because it's okay. It's okay to be honest about what you want from the hobby, what you've gotten from the hobby, what you hope to continue to get from the hobby, if anything. And a lot of the conversation that I had with people in the last week, I guess, about the landscape of the hobby, the changes in the hobby, people's changing perspective about the hobby. It's I had to remind folks of the period between 2008 and say 2015. And there have been other, I don't want to call them crashes, right? Because it's not really a crash. I mean, 2008 was sort of, an economic crash, just overall market. And obviously that's going to have an effect on, money being spent on hobby, on cards, on, on ancillary things. It's happened before in the 90s. It happened 2000, usually correlating to, overall market cycles. And what's funny is we've been operating here for the last year or so with the backdrop of the recession is coming. There are some hobby people who also have, some experience, in economics who have been talking about what's going to happen with cards and what's going to happen, if the overall market kind of takes a downturn. It's an election year also in the United States. I know it's a very United States, centric kind of view here, but that'll have some impact on the economy and, and the like as well. But it's important to kind of go back and take a look at it. And you guys can do this without having to really research too. I mean, if you wanted to, you could probably do some digging and, type into Google search terms, something like, Beckett Marketplace or sports card forums or blowout forums. And try to look at, 2008 pricing, the impact on the hobby and, in 2008. And what's funny, if you type the hobby, you're actually going to see the same impact across other hobbies as well. But the easiest way to do this is grab Card Ladder or grab, PSA's own website and pull up a card that, don't pull up a Wemby, folks. That's not going to help. Pull up a card that has a track record. Pull up, a pre-war vintage card. I know that's not for everybody. And that's not what everybody hobbies. And we're going to pivot to that in a second, right? But pull up a 33 Gaudy Ruth or pull up, 52 Mantle or pull up almost anything, right? Pull up any kind of card. It doesn't have to be baseball, I guess. Pull up a Montana rookie or pull up a Gretzky rookie. And what you're going to see for the most part, for the most grades, from 2008 to 2015, it's relatively a flat line, which is not the worst thing in the world, right? It didn't fall off a cliff for most of these, items, most of the blue chip items we talk about, not, some of the modern stuff. In 2008, people were still collecting Jamarcus Russell. Trust me, there's no flat line on what his card prices were. Take it from a Raider fan. And yeah, people were buying Jamarcus Russell just like they're going to buy Caleb Williams, just like they were buying Josh Rosen and Kyler Murray and Ryan Leaf and any number of quarterbacks that we've talked about, Daniel Jones for the last couple of years. People who are not going to pan out. I mean, you can Sam Darnold. I mean, There's gonna be a lot. Zach Wilson, that kind of stuff's a different thing. Chances are more of that kind of stuff continues to go down. But that's a different area of the hobby, right? That's more of a speculative nature, right? And people who are, putting money in this stuff, trying to buy what you would call blue chip items. You can look, man. That chart is a pretty flat line, and then obviously, some steam comes back into the hobby. We've all seen it, and that run, while it's a little slower, 15, 16, spike, it's come down a little, maybe the last 10 years or so has been an interesting run. Is it possible that, if the economy takes a little bit of a downturn, that we're going to look at the next, bunch of years as more of a flat period in card prices? It's not the worst thing in the world. If you wanted to buy a card, and it's the same price in a couple of years and you've got more money and you're able to actually pick that card up. And that leads us to the next question, right? I mean, if we operate under the assumption that prices are not going to continue to skyrocket, what does that mean for the space? You can take it a couple ways. And the question I ask you is, what are you here for? What is it that you're in the hobby doing, right? Because a lot of the hobby has morphed in the last couple of years. Fanatics has changed the space, I believe. Or at least put kind of like the sprinkles on top of the sundae. Modern cards are not really for collecting right now. I mean, don't get me wrong, there are some cards that people collect. I love, watching Signed and Slab to do his walks against Juan Soto, but he collects, stained glass cards. He's going to build up a PC of the, the Ginter minis that are stained glass. That's pretty cool. That's a collection. It's a collection of modern cards year over year that are made. There are people who, I'd like to hope there are people who are collecting Kaboom cards, people who are collecting, not just buying them and, speculating and flipping and investing them. But the truth of the matter is the what it looks like, and this is where I want you to be honest with yourself, what is it you're doing here in the hobby? What is it that you want out of the hobby? What is it you're here for? A lot of people are here just to try to hit a card they can sell and make some money on. That's the whole breaking game. And nothing wrong with that. I bought Powerball tickets yesterday. I don't know why. I don't know how much the prize is, but I went to 7-Eleven, picked up some coffee and picked up some candy and some soda. And I said to the guy, "Hey, what's the next big money? What's the next big, lottery?" And he's a Powerball. It's $100 and whatever $1,000,000. I said, "All right, give me $20." Very rarely do that. Probably twice a year. Only if it's like the big prize kind of deal. I don't know, you every once in a while you think, hey, why not me? I could buy a Honus Wagner too. Make some money on the Powerball. But that's a gamble, right? It's taking a chance. If the hobby is sort of your scratch off, your lottery ticket, you're taking a shot at a Powerball and hoping to hit a Wemby cherry blossom or whatever the hell it is that people are pulling out of these packs now. It's that's not really collecting per se, right? That's really just putting money in and hoping to get more money out. That's not, there's no real crash there. But I guess there could be, if card prices go down and less people are in the space, it's harder to sell those Wemby cherry blossoms or whatever it is that you're getting for higher prices. It's harder to keep up the pack, the price of wax, all that fun stuff. So I guess, there could be a ripple in that. But if the hobby is that, it's less about, well, can I buy these Babe Ruth cards now and, hold on to them and watch them steadily appreciate over time, which, believe it or not, is kind of the way that it was. I mean, you open some packs, sure. You rip some product, sure. But, you're looking for the cards that you want to have in your collection. And hence the word collecting, right? Not breaking or ripping or flipping, collecting. And I guess there's sort of like, that question of, if you're somebody who came in the last couple of years, are you someone who's going to stay if 2024 to 2030 is a period of static pricing. I'm sure some of you are saying, yeah. I'm sure some of you are saying, that sounds great. I can finally buy some of the cards that I like. Hell, maybe the prices go down. I can buy some of the cards I like. Well, consider yourself a collector. But I think if we're being honest, there are a bunch of people out there who would say no. They're not going to still be here. And let's kind of go a little further with that. A lot of people came into the space in the last few years. They had extra time, they had extra money, they were looking to flip, they were looking to make a little extra money. Money was easily made here. And with that, you also got a lot of businesses that came in. Grading companies, marketplaces. I think it's fair to say a lot of them aren't going to be here either. If there's less participants and the hobby hasn't 10x'd and prices are kind of static, do you lose some of these newer market participants that came in and raised money and are no longer able to raise money? And is that sort of the landscape? And you really don't have to look that far for this, guys. It has happened many, many, many times over. I remember collecting cards in 2010 and 2011 and focusing on UFC stuff because, why not? And being able to buy a box of Topps UFC, it was the Series 4, it's a white box, it was $40. Just sitting on the shelf, the LCS, $40. Nobody wanted it. And Knockout, was $150 a box. And, now a box costs more than what a whole case cost then. But I bring it up because no one was doing it. And what's amazing about it is you can see the cycles. Just look in your own town or ask somebody who's collected for a while about the card stores that used to be in your neighborhood. There are probably some stores now. How long has that store been open? 5, 10, 15 years? Was it the only store there? Was there a different store there? I speak about New York. Because, 2010, 2011, there were no stores in New York. Even though there were stores in 2003 when LeBron was huge, and that same store was there in 2009 and 10 when, people were trying to pull Strasburg cards out of Bowman, and, cards were still, were still doing all right, but heading down. And then all of a sudden, not there anymore. And I know people who were buying cards. I know people who were buying basketball cards. I know people who were buying cards in the 80s into the 90s, and then they stopped. I know people who were buying cards in the early 2000s into 2008, and then they stopped. I know people who are buying cards the last 5 years. Will you stop? Because the interesting part about it is I've seen this cartoon a couple of times, right? It's either two people standing pumping wells, right? And there's one person next to the other person, and the one person pumps a well and gets to the water quickly, but there's not that much water in it, but they're able to get there quickly. And the guy next to that person is pumping a well, and his well is deeper down. There's a humongous deposit of water there, but he stops short of it because he's watching the other person, and that other person gets to the well quick. So he stops pumping his well and goes to the other person and fills it up and is only able to get half as much and then leaves. Leaves his well this close to being finished and hitting that mother lode of water. The same thing I've seen sort of with the diamonds, right? Like the, people are digging a diamond mine and, they stop right this close before they hit that, that massive payload of diamond or gold or whatever it is underground that they're about to hit. And it's funny because the other end of the spectrum here of, will you be here is I remember people collecting in the late 80s, early 90s. I remember people buying Shaq cards. I remember kids coming to the store with me to buy cards. I remember people, buying 93, 94, 95, just, buying basketball cards. And it was, buying Chris Webber and buying Shaq and looking for Grant Hill and Jason Kidd. And then it kind of fizzled out. And what's funny is there are people who stayed. And the people who stayed were the ones who were able to buy PMGs and rubies and game used autographed memorabilia. The upper deck game jersey autograph cards. People left right before hitting that massive deposit of water or gold or diamonds. If they would have just stayed, boom, they would have been able to do it. And I can tell you guys, I will put myself in that same category because I bought so much UFC stuff. I bought so much stuff. I had so many Conor McGregor autos. I had so much Ronda Rousey stuff. I had so many of these, one of ones. Oh man, I pulled so many one of ones from triple threads and all kinds of stuff. I mean, Conor stuff, Khabib stuff, red ink autos. I mean, just numbered stuff. And I don't remember when it was, 2015, 2016. Sold it all. And said, all right, you know what? There's some interest in this. The sport doesn't, carry the same kind of, my guys were not doing as well. I was an Anderson Silva guy and he was getting older. But and had I held a little while longer, 2016, 2017, now into this boom, forget about it. I mean, I remember selling a Conor red ink auto for like, $12.50 and thinking, wow, that's a huge sale for UFC. That's a huge sale. I think I paid, $300 for it, $12.50. What a huge sale. And the last one sold for like $35,000. So what's funny about it is, an interesting part is there may be kind of this flat period. There may be even a little downturn. There may be, a pricing correction. There may be a time where there's less people in. But what I have found is the people who stay in, the people who continue to buy, the people who buy the right stuff, the good stuff, you name it, even modern. Think about that Conor stuff, right? Think about the UFC stuff. Think about LeBron stuff if you were buying then, if you were buying PMGs and Jordan stuff and 90s insert Jordans, if you're buying the legitimate right stuff, not trying to buy the best, new rookie and the whole deal, but if you're buying the right stuff and hanging on to it, eventually that flat stops. There is something else. I don't know what the catalyst is, but there always is that flat time here. There always is some economic downturn. There always is something else that brings attention back to this and gets the hobby going again. I don't know when that'll be. I don't know what it'll be that gets you there. But maybe the lesson of the episode isn't run away now. If there's going to be a period of flat or down, sell your stuff and get out and move it into something else. Maybe the lesson is don't be the guy who stops pumping his well right before he hits that water. Don't stop digging right before that gold is hit. Stick around, and maybe you're one of those people who's able to really do well on the next upturn. Maybe in the next episode, we talk about what the cards are that might make sense to hold for that next upturn and why. And no, it's not just vintage baseball. I know you're thinking that's what I want to say, but honestly, that might not be the right way to go, especially the post-war stuff, because the baby boomer generation, those people who collected that stuff, pretty soon, a lot of that stuff might come to market. People might be dying. People might be retiring. People might be looking to liquidate and, get on with their lives. Their heirs who come into possession of these things don't have the same type of attachment to it. I'm not talking about the high end stuff that is like art, but I think you can, kind of figure out where I'm going with it. What type of items, might be ones that you don't really have to hang on to forever. Anyway, it's a fun conversation. It's one of those things where, like, if you and me were at a bar and we had a couple of beers, I'm sure we could talk about this for hours, but nobody likes my hour-long episodes. You like the 20 minutes in and out, and we can carry on this conversation in the comments. Tell me what you think. Tell me whether or not you're somebody who's going to leave, somebody who's going to stay, whether you think it's worth hanging around through a flat period to maybe reap some of the rewards in the next upcycle. Whether you're leaving, whether you're staying, whether you've been through these things before and are prepared to be through another one, and maybe even what you think the right stuff to hold on to for the next upcycle is. And maybe we'll have another episode about what we talk about in the comments, because this is kind of where I am now. Some of the comments and some of the DMs that I got from last episode got me thinking about this one. But yeah, that's it. There's my whole fun episode. Tuesday news, you probably, seeing that as you listen to this, you'll probably, remember if you're listening to this Monday night, remember Tuesday, the news coming out tomorrow. Hell yeah. That's my favorite thing. I love doing that news. I got some fun stuff, some big sales over the weekend. It's fun to talk about like flat pricing when, a Michael Jordan card sold for almost $3 million. It's just fun stuff. It's fun stuff. All right, guys, we'll talk soon. Thank you for listening. Thanks for your 20 minutes. Thanks for your time. I appreciate each and every one of you. Take care.